Welcome everybody to the September call. I am Drew Decker with U.S. Geological Survey. Alex Jonesy, who's with the USGS National Geospatial Program Topographic Data Services Group, and I will be assisting with the call today. Although we will not start the presentation for a few minutes, I want to tell everybody that today's featured topic will be the NHDPlus HR National Release 1. It's going to be presented by Kevin McNinch with the USGS Hydrography Program. And before we get started with the presentation, I just want to note that the community calls here are held on behalf of the USGS Hydrography Program. The Hydrography Program leads are Steve H.L., Sue Buto, and Sylvia Terziati. We typically open up our call with any announcements from the hydrography team and the leads, and then we move ahead into our scheduled presentation with its questions and answers, and then close with any further from the group. And the group meaning everybody here on the call will be welcome to make any announcements or comments after we're done with the presentation. So what I'd like to do then is open this up for any announcements for the hydrography leads. If Steve or Sue or Sylvia are there, please feel free to bring up anything you'd like to announce. Otherwise, we can move on to other folks in Hydro.
Thanks, Drew. I don't think Sue or Sylvia are on today. They're both traveling.
Okay.
And I don't think I have anything particularly new to add today. So let's just carry on with the main event here.
Okay, sounds great. And final call, any other hydro folks from the hydrography program here, WBD, anyone who wants to say anything? We can cover any announcements too at the end of the call as well. So again, what we're going to do is go ahead and get started. So I'm going to re-announce that our feature topic will be the NHDPlus HR National Release 1. It'll be presented by Kevin McNinch with the USGS Hydrography Program. Kevin, I see you're here. Are you ready to go in a moment? Okay.
Sure, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, I guess we'll plan to take any questions after the presentation, unless you prefer to cover them as they come up.
I could do it either way.
Okay, we can just go ahead and cover them after that, unless you want to, get into any while you're presenting. And Alex and I will help with questions once we're done. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Sounds good. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my slide?
Yep, we see it.
All right, I'm going to turn my camera off. All right, so as Drew mentioned, I'm Kevin McNinch, and I am going to talk to you today about the NHDPlus HR National Release 1. I can get my slides to advance. There we go. So we're going to talk about the Release 1. I'm going to highlight some key differences in that product and our other NHDPlus HR National or NHDPlus HR products. And we're going to talk a little bit about some changes to the NHDPlus HR map service, because that's based on the same model as this national release we're going to talk about today. So well, for some of you, it's been a long time coming. We've been working on this for a surprisingly long time, but we're going to announce today that we have a new product. It's called the NHDPlus HR National Release 1, and it's a nationally continuous representation of the NHDPlus HR data. Based on we released most of the products based on the vector processing units, which are hydrologic unit 8s or 4s. But in this time, we take all that data and we roll it up into one nationally continuous representation, and we're going to have that as a downloadable product, or we do have it as a downloadable product now for anyone to take and use. So it is big. It's a 26 gigabyte zip file to download. That unzipped is about 57 gigabytes, and that has a lot more stuff in this flow lines and catchments, but there's around 25 million flow lines and catchments in this data set. It is being released now as a file geodatabase format. There will be a GeoPackage format coming in the future. Not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but that is in the works. And it does share a data model with the map service, the NHDPlus HR map service, which some of you hopefully are familiar with. And we're going to talk about that some more later. So as part of the release, if you go to the Access Hydrography Products page, a new option, this is what that page looks like. This is where you can find all the downloadable products. But if you scroll down a little bit, you can find this download option for the NHDPlus High Resolution. And at the bottom of that, there's now a NHDPlus HR National Release 1 option. And that will take you to a web page in our download area with the actual downloadable files. Actually, I think there's one click in between these two images, but it takes you to the folder that contains these downloadable files. But this is where you go to download it. You can download all of our products from this way as well. But another way to download them is using the National Map Download tool, which this product has also been added to that. So now when you go in, if you use this product and you go and you download files and you look at the hydrography, there's an NHDPlus HR option that you can choose when you download products, and the data extent now has a national option that was there before, but it was just grayed out, and now it's not grayed out. So it is available to download, which is good. So the next part of this is we're going to highlight differences in the products between this NHDPlus HR National and the NHDPlus HR VPUs. And again, the VPUs are the downloadable products based on the hydrologic unit 4s and 8s products that we have been releasing since 2017. So the biggest difference is there's only certain data elements in this new product. It has a subset of feature classes and tables, and none of the raster data is included with the national product. If you need the raster data, it is available with the smaller VPU downloads. You need to go and download the VPU downloads to get that data. This image shows us a list of what is included in the national product. As you can see, there's not nearly as much as in the downloadable products if you've ever looked at those products. And there's a couple of differences that we're going to highlight in the next couple of slides as well about some of the feature classes that are available. But this is a much simpler data set. And if you compare this to this one on the left is the one I just showed on the previous slide. And this, I'm sure, is illegible here on the right. But this is a list of all of the elements that are in the VPU downloads, the NHDPlus HR VPU downloads. So 16 database elements versus 83. So there's stuff in the VPU datasets that are not in the national, but most of the important stuff for analysis and making maps and stuff we have included in the national product. And some of those important stuff is what we call value-added attributes in the NHDPlus HR, and these are calculated attributes and enhancements to the data that we make during the NHDPlus HR creation process. And those are what a lot of those tables on the previous slide, those 83 elements, a lot of those tables were where these attributes are housed in those products. But in this national product, we've actually taken some time and joined a lot of those attributes to the flow lines so that you can get to them a lot easier without having to make your own joins and just to be able to have them easily accessible. Along with that, the NHDPlus flow line feature class has been split, and now it's two different feature classes. There's the network NHD flow line and the non-network NHD flow line. And by inference, the network NHD flow lines are all the flow lines that are a part of the main flow network. And there's a vast majority of them in that. There's 500 or so thousand features in the non-network NHD flow line. So to this network NHD flow line is where we have joined a lot of those VAAs from the VAA table and the EROM tables, the enhanced runoff method tables. And probably somewhat hard to see because there's a lot going on in this page too, but this is a look at the network NHD flow line feature class and all of its attributes, including the ones we've joined. And you can see in this green box is a lot of the stuff we've joined from the NHDPlus flowline VAA table, a lot of the attributes, and the blue ones come from the EROM tables. And there's a lot of attributes on here. These attributes are presented in the same way. The name is the same for each, and it still has an alias that's the same, and all of the elements are the same for all of these. And it is a lot of attributes, but it does make it easy to get to them. So a third difference is we've added some data to this product that's not available in the VPU products. And most of these are some national data sets that we use for processing the data, but it is useful for users to be able to have access to this data as well. The first one is an NHDPlus boundary unit feature class, and this is the VPU boundaries that we process the data on. And it actually, in that first slide, the first map that I showed that showed the extent of the data, it's those polygons that are in that map. We also have an NHDPlus connect table, and this is the network connections for all of the 25 million features. And there's an NHDPlus gauge that's been added, and this includes the stream gauges that are used in the EROM calculations, and only those gauges. So it's not all gauges that USGS has, it's only the ones that are used in the creation of those EROM values. And there's also an NHDPlus gauge smooth table, which includes some more information about the gauges in addition to our removals that are mapped within those. And the fourth difference is, and this is important to be able to use this data set on a national level, is we have made changes to the VAAs based on processing changes that happen when the data is created, and sometimes based on the data creation, some of the value-added attributes that are downstream of the VPU that's being processed get changed and have to be updated based on some differences in calculations as you progress in the drainage area. And those are not applied back to the downloadable data sets once they are created. We don't go back and update those, but we have updated them in this national data set. So what this means is if you do regional or national extent things of especially features across like VPU boundaries or the VPU regions or the hydrologic regions, that we fixed the network attributes like level path ID and terminal path ID and all those that allow you to trace up and down the network easily and see how features go between these boundaries. Example here is looking at the Mississippi River and the Missouri, these crossovers, to some different regions, and we're able to do these traces. I don't necessarily know that these had a problem with these needed to be updated, but the idea there is that you can do these analysis on national and regional scope, which is the reason why we made this data set, because we want people to be able to take this data and use it from a national extent and do some, very interesting things as you can imagine. It is a very big data set, but you can query it and you can do some analysis. It does take a while, but it is usable. I will say there's maybe some tips and tricks that we need to come up with to make it run faster because it is so big and queries do take a long time. So there'll be some experimentation of how to make it optimize analysis, but we have done some testing with it to be able to do some interesting things. And we have added some indexes to certain key attributes. And we actually would like to know if we find attributes that people want to add, attributes to index that we want to add in the future, please let us know because we can add those before the data set gets created, because some of the attribute indexes do take a long time to create because the data set is so big. So some more stuff that you can do with a national extent, and this is a map that we made this last year on the national data, looking at the stream fill estimates across the US. And we were able to categorize those, with the line thickness changing based on the flow estimates across the US. So it comes out, we can kind of see where the water goes, and it's a kind of interesting looking map. These are some of the sorts of things that you can do with the national extent data. So if you want to see the full data model, we do have a data model poster. It's similar to the NHD and NHDPlus HR VPU posters that we've released, and the WBD also has a poster. We have moved all of these posters to this SpecX nationalmap.gov website. I will say that sometimes has been up and down lately, but we do have the model poster published there. And if you, so the science-based record is also been published to ScienceBase. This is where you can find some more metadata about the product, and it's going to come up on the next slide as well. But if you want to find that, we have the link there, but the best way to find it in sciencebase.gov is to search for NHDPlus HR National Release 1, and it should show up. So a key thing that we have added with this product is a digital object identifier that redirects to this product, and it allows you to identify this product for citation and reports and studies and any sort of publications or any way we want to identify this data set, and for you to specifically say which data you use for your, your study or your paper or your publication or whatever it is. So we have created the DOI. This is it here. We can put this in the chat as well. But the way this works is this DOI will point you back to the sciencebase catalog record for this national release 1, which is the same one I had on the previous page. And that is how we're going to maintain that DOI. So then if you want to download the data, you download it from the sciencebase page. So a key thing here is this, and I probably should have reordered this a little bit, but the second point down here on this slide. So once these releases, NHDPlus HR national releases are published, we're going to maintain them in that location. In other words, they're not going to go away. If we publish new data, it will become a release 2, and release 1 will stay in place. So that if we have any citations to that release 1, they can be maintained, going forward for the foreseeable future. So that's the advantage of having the DOI, and hopefully people start using it, because it'd be great if people could point specifically to the version of data that they used in their studies, which previously we've not been able to do. So the top point on this page was we are going to have a GeoPackage version of the release 1. It is not quite ready yet. There's some issues that we've run into converting the data, and some resource issues as well, getting it done. But we do plan to have that, and we will be releasing that, and it will have its own unique DOI. So changing gears a little bit, as coordinated with those changes, with release of the national, we have some changes to the map service. We have an NHDPlus HR map service, which hopefully most of you know about, or some of you have seen, but if you haven't seen it, we do have a map service for NHDPlus HR. And there are going to be a few updates to that, or there are a few updates to that. And I'm going to go over what those updates are. But this is the map service link. And just a little bit of a summary of that. So it is a REST service, and we do have a WMS endpoints as well. And it is a map service. It's not a feature service, but it's a map service. And it has been available a little over a year, and we're still looking at some of the best ways to optimize that. And we've been looking at maybe making a feature service in the future, but we haven't quite got there, but that is in the work. So what are the changes? Basically, we're adding the same layers, or some of the same layers that we talked about before, the feature classes, the boundary unit, and NHDPlus gauge to this, and one layer goes away, NHD burn line event. But because of this, the index order of the layers inside of the service have changed, unfortunately, by the way we make the map services for those dynamic services. If you change the draw order, it actually changes the index order, which is unfortunate, but that has caused that change. So hopefully anyone can repoint their indexes if they use indexes to account for this in any code or anything. But just be aware of that the index order has changed of the layers. And going forward, we are going to publish this updates to this map service every time we publish the VPU data, not the national data. So every time we're expecting, to have data sets updated, every quarter or so. Those will be published to this map service. So that will make this map service the most up-to-date version of the NHDPlus data that you can get. And it will have, because we're using the same data model as is in the national, it will have those updates of the VAAs for the downstream changes that occur when we process data. So this will represent the most update version of the data going forward. It doesn't. So some of the things that we can expect going forward, we definitely are looking at a release 2. It's still to be determined exactly when that'll happen, and most likely like 23. Some of the things that may be in there, we're looking at including what we're calling fill and spill, which is how we manage disconnected networks and the flow through those disconnected networks. So there'll probably be an additional element in this national data set for that. And we're also working on some changes related to some BGN, Board of Geographic Names, recent changes on name changes related to derogatory names. So those have not quite got into this data set, but that is a high priority for us to get those updated and into a version of this data. And that is in the works.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and have a great day.